We're going to start today to talk about environmental issues. What I want you to do is first think about the environmental issues, and I want you to list the 3 environmental issues you think are most important. Here are a list of some of today's biggest environmental issues. Some of these we have discussed briefly in class. We saw some of those in the short ed puzzles that we watched. These are not the only environmental issues that we have. Resource use is very much tied to many of these issues. As a species, humans use a ton of natural resources, from what we use to heat our homes to all the products that we use in our homes. The natural resources that can be replaced in a short amount of time are called renewable resources. Non-renewable resources are those resources that cannot be replaced in a short amount of time. We as humans really use a lot of non-renewable resources. Those fossil fuels, oil, natural gas, coal, those are all non-renewable resources. And the only way we get those non-renewable resources is from dead and decaying things that have been compressed and have formed over thousands of years. So these are not things that are easily replaced. They are non-renewable resources. Here are some examples of renewable versus non-renewable resources. Coal, oil, and natural gas are all non-renewable resources. Renewable resources are wind, sunlight, water, and trees, but we need to be careful with that because sometimes trees can't be replaced. Sometimes we cut them too much and we can't get them to grow again, and it damages the ecosystem, like the rainforest, things like that. So trees can be a little bit iffy. In recent times, there has been an explosion of science and technology. The problem with that is as the population grows, it taxes more of our resources. Same thing goes for the technology. When we are talking about the technology, we need resources for that. And a lot of those resources are non-renewable resources. And also when that technology is no good anymore, it can be very damaging for the ecosystems. Pollution is what we define in any change to the environment that has a negative impact on living things. So there are lots of things that can cause pollution, and we have different forms of pollution. Anything that causes damage to the ecosystem or nature is called a pollute. And this could be natural, or this could be something like man-made. When we take and we have oil spills and things like that, that causes pollution. When we burn fossil fuels, that causes pollution. But it can also be from things like volcanoes and that erupting. Some of that can, like the ash and that, could be considered pollutants. But the biggest sources of pollution are us as humans, from different industrial factories, from agricultural things like where we farm and we use chemicals and we cut down things and they're not replaced. So humans are really responsible for the pollution. So how do we approach these environmental issues? Well, you can't just say, let's completely change the way we live. There are certain things that we do need. But the problem that we're looking at is there is an increased population, and the population continues to increase. And as the population continues to increase, so does the demand for those resources. What we need to do is we need to start making better choices as humans, and we need to realize that all of us need to make these better choices, and we need to find ways around some of the issues that we have. It is a global thing. It is also a personal thing. You as an individual need to start to make choices and decisions, but also as a global level, we need to start to make choices and decisions to reduce the use of these resources. So I want you to think back to your think about it. Did you do research on any of these issues? Do you have any prior knowledge on any of these issues? When you talk about these things, and when we talk about doing that type of research and how humans impact things, that is called environmental science. Environmental science can be used to explain how our actions impact the world around us. From the polar ice caps melting and global warming to why we're seeing certain storms. Studying environmental science helps us get a better understanding of what is going on in our environment. Environmental science is made up of many different viewpoints. A lot of those viewpoints, though, can be put into different categories: development, preservation, and conservation. Development is the idea that humans should be able to use the resources as freely as possible. And when we're looking at that, a lot of that is based on economics, which involves money, business, jobs. The resources they consider often benefit humans in a material way. But all of this requires balance. When we talk about preservation, that is the belief that all parts of the environment are equal. This means that humans should treat all of the parts of the environment with respect and concern, even if it does not have monetary value. People that follow this are often concerned about the beauty, the comfort, and the recreation values, not just the monetary values. Conservation is the belief that you can use resources as long as you do not destroy the area around it. This is considered the balance between development and preservation. An example of this is that you could build your factory if you didn't disturb the animals or the environment too much when you build these factories or when you build your housing plans. So to wrap that all up, what we're saying is that it can be very hard to deal with your environmental issues, especially the ones that aren't in your communities. When we're talking about these things globally, it's a little bit easier to say, oh, it doesn't affect me, but it really does. And it's very important to learn about these approaches and how to deal with them. And environmental science helps people to do that. What you're going to do now is you are going to think about this following scenario. In your city, they're planning to build a new high school to replace the rundown old one that is crumbling, has no air conditioning, and the furnace doesn't work so well. Often it doesn't work. You don't have heat. The fans are so loud you can't hear. The land the school is going to be built on is a breeding ground for a rare species of frogs. There's going to be a meeting held to discuss the future of the school. And since your class is going to be there, they want to know your opinion. Half of your class is split for the school being built and against the school being built. What I would like you to do is I would like you to consider all points of this scenario. I want you to make a list of the positives and negatives for building the school and not building the school. Give me a list of the costs, the negative things that can happen, and a list of the positive things that can happen. Then I want you to consider and answer these questions. What major points were made about the frogs? What major points were made about building the new building? And was a solution found using development, preservation, or conservation? So I want you to really come up with an idea that is going to be something that we could use to solve this dilemma of, do we build the school or do we not build the school? And how do you come to that decision? I want you to finish up those notes. I would like you to turn those notes in on Teams for me, or you can turn them in person tomorrow. If you have any questions, please let me know.